Hi, my name is Pejman Ghadimi, and today you may remember me from such platforms as Exotic Car Hacks or Exhilarating Academy, where we teach people the absolute best ways to get in and out of exotic cars or buy watches and literally trade them for incredible profits. But today, we are not talking about either one of those two things. Instead, we have decided to do a very cool video for the ass clowns of the world or the people that are getting richer out there and perhaps have never interacted with somebody of wealth or perhaps an item or something that is of greater value than their entire life savings. So today, in this incredible descriptive video for Exotic Car Hacks, I am going to break down for you the rules of engaging with an exotic car, regardless that it is yours or mine, and how to ensure you don't come across as an ass clown, regardless that you're at Cars and Coffee or that you're in someone's garage, or perhaps your closest friend has offered you a ride in his Bugatti. Now, historically, most of you who are ass clowns are not going to get a ride in a Bugatti, but if you're a good person and perhaps you have a good friend and you're on the up and up, perhaps you will first get a ride and later own your very own. But since the majority of people are still at the Honda Civic level, it's hard for them to grasp how to actually act around an actual exotic car. So today, using my Bugatti, we are going to use this as an example of how a person should behave when engaging with the car for the very first time, or perhaps just at any time. Now, you might find yourself with a phone at some point, a phone that you will use to take photos of cars at Cars and Coffee or in your friend's garage. There are some do's and don'ts when using a cellular device and taking a photo of a car. Good behavior would require your cellular device to literally stay away from the vehicle. A good way to take a photo would be to take a photo here, here, or anywhere else, even closer to the vehicle here. One of the do not do practices would be to take a photo like this. One, allowing your body to actually touch the car. Secondly, allowing your phone to become a hazard if dropped on the car. Clearly common sense, however not so common in car shows. So do not lean over people's car, and more importantly, do not risk dropping your phone in the car. Another good thought when taking a photo is to ensure you don't have to touch the car in order to do so. And if you are perhaps someone of good charm and perhaps have with you a beautiful woman that will pose with the car, perhaps ask her to not sit on the car, touch the car, or get near the car. And more importantly, ensure that her foot, her heel, or anything else does not touch the bottom of the car. This very simple tutorial on taking a photo from a distance will enable you the power of being able to not only get a great photo, but certainly do not cause damage to a car you cannot afford to fix. Imagine the impact of dropping a heavy phone on a carbon structure and cracking it. Imagine the impact of damaging the windshield. Imagine the impact of your friend just sitting here on her heel, ripping off a piece of carbon. These are basic common sense practices when at car shows or when taking photos of other people's cars. When taking photos on this side, do not put any pressure on the car. If you do not own it, do not put pressure on the windshield. And more importantly, even if you own the car, it isn't unnecessary to step on the roof. There are enough circus monkeys in the world where you do not need to become another one. Owning an exotic car is enough of an achievement that you do not need to climb on top of it in order to make a statement that you're on top of the world, only to crack your windshield like an ass clown. So these have been good tips to practice when taking a photo of an exotic car. 2, when dealing with opening and closing doors, it is important to pay attention. Indeed, the idea of hearing things may be very difficult for some of you that are 90, but the majority of you who are 19 are just simply retarded. A key is used to unlock a car. Usually, a single click will appear, and many times a second click will need to appear for the second door to be open. Ensure you hear the click before pulling on the handle only to realize it is locked, at which point you may open the door. Now, we have to first hear rather than pull hardly, only to look at why is this handle not opening. It only makes common sense. When opening and closing doors, you would assume that the average human has some level of common sense, greater than the Homo sapien or the monkey. But in this case, in many cases, it is not the case. People will open doors significantly too fast, unnecessary, and they will, in other words, attempt to open the door without actually just simply opening the door. It is a normal car. A door does not need to be slammed shut or opened hard. These doors do not need to be thrown. You can simply open the door and pay attention using the handle. Do not open the door using the glass. You will leave your ugly fingerprints on the glass and force the owner to have to clean his glass again. Open the door using the handle only when permitted to do so from the owner. If cars have shut doors, there's usually a reason behind it, and it is so your sorry ass does not sit in the car or interact with the car. You have to respect the fact that other people's possessions and of course the car itself is not yours to choose from. So you should not attempt to open a door if at a car show or if in someone else's garage unless you ask permission. A good way to do so would be, may I open this door and check out the interior of the car? If the answer is yes, you may proceed, look, even this, closing it. You may proceed gently by just opening it. Attempt to open the door as long as there is clearance here, and then proceed to take a look inside the car. It would be stupid to open the door without permission, especially when it isn't your car. Now, when shutting the door, after you've done all the reckoning you can do from that side of the door, would be to shut the door. Now, should you find yourself in a situation where the car does not have a soft closed door and does not close itself all the way, you may reopen the door and shut it with a little bit more strain. What not to do would be to slam the door, because it could cause damage to the hinges and of course to the glass itself. Part of the reason that these are exotic cars is they require a very basic level of finesse, right? So no slamming. Opening the door after asking permissions can make sense and can certainly help deter any type of issue with the door itself. In this next segment, we're going to gauge how to actually get in and out of an exotic car. The majority of people getting in and out of an exotic car may or may not attempt to jump in the car directly going in this way. This will create a little bit of an issue because you will require holding on to things that are not meant to be held on to. Now, you may notice there is an extreme gap usually in hypercars and very hard to get in exotic cars like SVJs and other cars, including if they have any type of race seat or carbon fiber seat. There is a gap here which will make it difficult to get in. It is important to understand a couple of things. Do not fall into the seat and hurt the seat. If you're over 250 pounds, I would even caution you to even getting in the car itself. Perhaps request the assistance of a pet monkey or a midget or someone of smaller tenure to be able to get into the car. They may need to move the car for you, as you may need to lose weight. Now, if you are, however, a person that fits the model of someone that should be inside the car, I want to caution you to watch hitting the carbon pieces or any pieces here that may damage the car itself. A good practice to use when getting in the car is to remove any type of device or things that could be in your pocket that could harm the car when sitting in, such as keys or paper clips or anything else that could be there, and place them into the side of the car or somewhere else. If testing the car, a good practice is to sit right here at the edge, not on the edge of the car itself, but rather on the edge here, and move your way slowly into the car, not cracking anything. Now, during this position, which may seem like you're getting head, it may be better to actually move your foot without hitting this piece of the door, and also allow your foot to slowly slide in without damaging this part of the car, with your second foot not hitting any of the carbon fiber and instead coming in this way. You may then, when seated, adjust your seat and then further close your door. And when closing the door again, no hard or fast motion is necessary, and you will find yourself closed in. A pretty simple concept when getting in, and ensuring that when you open the door when getting out, that there's no other obstacle here, another vehicle perhaps, or do not swing the door open. You may want to open the door first in a smaller setting like this, ensure you're not hitting anything, push it slightly more, and slowly open it until you ensure that you have not smashed into another car. And smashing another car could cause massive damage that you would not be able to afford to fix. Now, getting out of the car will require a little bit of maneuvering yourself back into that same position by watching your foot to not scrape or hurt anything, and it may be a little bit difficult. Use the bolster on the seat here and use the base here by opening the door further and then pushing yourself out. Now, it may seem a little bit acrobatic and a little bit difficult to get in and out of a car, but that is purposefully the way it is intended to be operated. So it may require a little bit of finesse again, but it will prevent you from damaging your friend's car or perhaps just damaging your very own car. In this next segment, we're going to look at being a good Samaritan when sitting inside your friend's car. Now, a common practice would be to sit quietly and enjoy the ride, and more importantly, create good conversation. Bad practice would be to start touching everything. Don't be one of these guys that needs to hear ASMR, start touching all the little buttons, all the little vents, play with all the little stuff, and hear out all these little things, and then say, how do you open this? How do you close that? Why is this going on? What is this here? What is that here? I need to touch everything. If you find yourself with the need to touch things, hold your own. Like seriously, you would hold your own and literally hold yourself in place in order not to get too excited about touching other things in the car. It would not only be respectful to not touch everything and leave your fingerprints everywhere, but it would be even more respectful to not breaking things by pressing buttons when they're not meant to be pressed. Many functions in the car do not operate when the car is off and are meant to not operate or be touched, period. Right? Make sense? Get it? Cool. Next, we're going to look at this very simple concept of maneuvering wires in a garage. You see, there are always wires hanging around cars in garages because they are being charged on a tender, meaning this car's battery is being charged. As a result, there's a wire hanging right here. Now, I know most people are blind when they walk around, and it may be difficult to see a black on black floor wire, but it does require your awareness, which is why we're going to demonstrate how to navigate around a bunch of wires. You see, as I walk and I identify a wire, I will go over such wire instead of stepping on the actual box itself. Now, furthermore, it is important to not get caught in the wire, but rather to go over the wire. We're gonna try this again. If the wire exists here, before crossing, we are not going to tap or harm the actual box. Instead, we're going to go over it. This simple step will allow you to ensure you're not scratching or pulling any wires that would harm the car. Another wire can be found here, clearly hanging from the car. Obviously, a box is here as well. In order to navigate these two wires, we're simply going to go over them like this. A good practice would be to not step on it, but to go over it. And when two wires are present, an extra challenge poses itself, but you may need to maneuver around such wires. In this next segment, we're going to look at the temptation of an open window. Now, in a normal setting, an open window would mean nothing more than a window being open, giving you the ability to look inside a car. However, at a Cars and Coffee event or some type of car event, someone may mistake an open window with an open invitation to interact with the car. To ensure you understand the two, let's say something very simple. If an open window exists, it still means that there's an imaginary window here and that your arm should not be passing this particular section. Now, if you're looking at the car with a much better visual without a window certainly gives you a good grasp of how beautiful the car is. But it does not require you to interact with the seat or anything else. Do not grab or do not touch the car as if the window did not exist. Assume that there is no need to interact past where the window would be otherwise by looking further. One other piece of advice would be that an open window is not an open invitation to get in the car. Do not attempt, do not open, and do not engage with sitting in the seat without permission. It is common sense that you should not sit your ass in someone else's car without asking them first if it's okay for you to do so. The answer is 99% of the time, no, unless you are somewhat related or know the person at hand. In many cases, even in a vast car show, even if you knew me, I would potentially tell you to not sit in my car, to not invite other idiots to doing the same thing, thinking it is now a carousel ride at the latest fair. It isn't, And this window, while open, giving you a great view in the car, gives you an opportunity to take a great picture. Going back to our first point, great pictures can happen from a distance. You see, cell phone devices today have a zoom feature that enables you to look deep in a car without having to go here. This clearly states, again, a photo here with a zoom, a photo here inside the car. These are best practices to ensure that you do not violate the car's rights, but ensure that you're always getting the right shot and preventing owners from never showing up again and other people from ever taking photos because your dumbass had to interact with the car inside as if you've never felt the leather seat, you've never felt the car door or anything else. Do not fucking touch things. It's really simple. So the problem with assuming cars don't have rights is that cars like these cost more usually than your entire lifespan of hard work put together. And while there are some of you who are on the up and up and will eventually get here, let's face the reality that 80% of the world will never get to own or be near an exotic or hypercar, which is okay. But some cars have better lives than you, and you therefore should not violate the car's right because you're violating the owner's right. And it is also very important to never interact with things disrespectfully, especially if you cannot afford to fix them. Hi, in this next section, we're going to discuss your magical things called children, not unicorns, children. Children should not be walking close to an exotic or hypercar at an event, especially if they are struggling with sensory, what do you call those things when dolphins have a sonar?
Yeah, that's what it is, sonar.
Okay, so whenever children basically can't think like dolphins and get too close to things without bumping into them, they should use the 2-foot rule, which is basically you put a foot and a second foot here, which means this is the closest they should ever get to the item. This will do a couple of things. One, it will prevent them from touching the item. It is too far. See that? Being closer would mean having your hand on the item. Being further means you cannot reach the item. The 2-foot rule always works. Walking around the car with 2 feet in between gives you the ability to still enjoy the experience of the car without being able to touch it. You see, if we violate this rule again, I can touch it, put my fingerprints all over it. This would be bad for the owner of the car. Now, following this next step, we can go around the car using the 2-foot rule and dodging the wires here, not causing any problems for anybody, right? Very simple. Now, following further, if your children are on bicycles, tricycles, or anything else that includes them operating some other device, a mini motorcycle, a fake car, a radio control car, they should be coming 5 feet from the car with that device. Children are notorious for falling off of devices, including onto cars, notorious for not having the sensors to control these devices with haste and speed. We can't expect children to know how to ride these devices when their own parents don't know how to ride real cars without getting in accidents just because there is some rain, right? So you can't expect your kids to be smarter than you when you yourself can't operate a device. So therefore, if your children are on a device and you have previously struggled with an accident, bad credit, bad judgment, or anything else that makes you believe that it is very difficult for you to learn how to live and coexist in society, it is probably a good assumption that your children are mimicking your behavior, and it is probably best for them to stay 5 foot away from an item you cannot afford to fix. In this next section, we're going to identify how to act if you find yourself to have food and drinks in your hand before interacting with an exotic car. Perhaps you may struggle with having the urge to eat your bar or to drink your drink, but are also given a chance to admire and interact with perhaps a Bugatti, a Lamborghini, or an Aston Martin. There may be some things you may want to consider, such as, is it time to get in the car? You may want to always check your hands to make sure they are not dirty or you do not have all types of liquids or food or chocolate in your hands before handling this. Now, prior to getting in the car, it is always advisable to not attempt to get in the car with something liquidy and something that could smudge or damage the seats. A good practice would be to walk somewhere else or perhaps leave them right here on the floor and then get in the car itself, taking the food and the drinks in the car, especially if your car does not have a cup holder, is never recommended, and in many cases frowned upon by the owners of the car who themselves do not take drinks or food in the car. So let's try this again. Food and drinks. Food and drinks on the floor. Getting in the car. Or food and drinks in the trash. Getting in the car. This very basic set of behavior will ensure that you may stay hungry for a few minutes or hours while interacting in the car, but will ensure that you do not have a problem that could be very costly on Alcantara or leather interiors, especially if cars have perforated or beautiful stitching that will now forever be stained by your tea, coffee, or your chocolate bar. Well, finally, I've taken you through all the steps necessary to ensure you have good etiquette around cars you cannot typically afford. Now, if you find yourself to be someone who can afford such car, you probably have a greater privilege than those that cannot. And it is important to respect other people's privilege who also have earned their car by asking permission, regardless of how much money you have. While some of you may believe you have enough money to buy a car, many of you would not be able to write a check should something happen to a car. Therefore, asking permission is always the right thing to do. Now, on the other hand, we have a rule in the car business which basically states if you can afford it and if you can afford to crash it, you can drive it, you can touch it, and you can interact with it. If you cannot afford it, if you cannot afford to repair it, if you cannot afford your children's actions around it, don't touch it. This is just a very good rule of thumb that will prevent you from having future problems. One, with the individual, secondly, with the car itself. These basic practices may seem like common sense, but they really aren't common sense to all people. We would love if you could share, like, and subscribe to this channel, but more importantly, share this video with your friends and family who may be around your exotic cars, our exotic cars, or any other exotic cars, in order to create a better world where people don't damage shit they can't afford. This has been an Exotic Car Hacks presentation, ensuring the world is a better place, one clown at a time. Please click like, turn on subscriptions, notifications, whatever the hell you do, and leave the comment. Did I miss a rule that you think should be an absolute rule for every single person interacting with an exotic? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. I'll catch you next time for another Exotic Car Hacks video.